It was one of the most spammed weapons in COD history, and I don't think it was overpowered, because when you look at the stats, it really wasn't that crazy. But I think everything else that was underpowered in comparison, it wasn't crazy on its own, but there was no true counter to it, and it was easily the easiest gun to use in the game. The last evolution video we did was about the AK-47 in Call of Duty, and I had a lot of requests to do the M4 carbine, or the M4A1. What is up, everybody? Chaos here. Welcome back to the Evolution series. Thank you for all the support on the first 2 episodes. You guys are blowing it out of the water, and the M4 has been a big part of Call of Duty for a long time. Ever since we crossed into the modern era, the M4 has appeared in tons of Call of Duty titles. It's a very common weapon in real-world warfare, so it's only natural that it will be found in a ton of modern military video games. But just how much has the M4 changed, evolved, devolved over the years in Call of Duty? Well, that's what we are going to go over. You let me know, what is your favorite version of the M4? And make sure you guys turn on those notifications. Do me a favor, ring that bell and check the box that says you receive all notifications from this channel. We are trying to raise the Team Chaos notification percentage this year, but you also have to have your YouTube notifications on, or it doesn't matter. After you've handled that, let's get into this. And we're going to kick things off with the game that started it all, Call of Duty 4. Now, the M4 was unlocked at level 10. It was a pretty popular pick due to it being the easiest assault rifle to control. It only dealt 20 to 30 damage per bullet, which was very low in COD 4, but it made up for it. It had a high fire rate, good range, and very low recoil. It fired at 857 rounds per minute, which made it one of the fastest firing guns in its class at the time. In the range, it was super forgiving. Like I said, the recoil, it was low. So it was a great gun for people to use when first getting their feet wet in COD 4. And in hardcore, it was an absolute monster, thanks to all those traits really being put on full display. Now, you're going to see a lot of similarities throughout this video, because we're going to go through different versions of the M4, but a lot of them they're similar. They are. They all use the COD 4 version as a benchmark. Fast firing, easy to control, and with somewhat average damage. It's a gun that's easy to use and get consistent shots with, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to be spot on in order to go on long killing sprees with it due to the amount of time you have to hit somebody in order to drop them. Regardless, the M4 was a popular pick in COD 4 thanks to its ease of use and its fast fire rate. Now we move on to Modern Warfare 2. The M4 returned, but I think most people will agree it wasn't nearly as good as it was before. The Modern Warfare 2 M4 wasn't a bad gun by any means, but it was also nowhere near as good as the other assault rifles in this game. The M4 was ported almost completely untouched from COD 4. Now, oftentimes when guns appear in multiple COD games, they have slight variations or changes to the fire rate or the damage, but with the M4, it was identical in COD 4 to the Modern Warfare 2 version. And once again, it hit between 20 and 30 damage, fired at 857 rounds per minute exactly like COD 4, had low recoil, was unlocked early, so most everybody had access to it. Like I said, the M4 Modern Warfare 2, it was hindered a bit. It was okay, but all the other guns in this game were super powerful. The TAR-21, the ACR, the SCAR, the UMP. There were so many melty automatics in Modern Warfare 2 that the M4 wasn't really that appealing. And one of the big draws of it in COD 4 was how easy it was to use. But let's be real. Everything was easy to use in Modern Warfare 2. So many guns were total lasers with high damage to boot. So why would you take the M4 over any of those? Now, it's not to say that it didn't have some good stuff. It did. The high fire rate, the forgiving range, once again, made it a good pick for hardcore. And it had a beefy 1.4 times headshot multiplier, meaning you could get some cheesy kills up close. It was a good weapon on its own, and it was a good assault rifle for leveling up once you unlocked any of the other automatics, but you were probably going to drop it and swap it for one of those. Like I said, it was good, it just wasn't good enough. Now we get into Black Ops, and one of my favorite guns in COD history, the Commando. It is an interesting twist or take on the M4, okay? In real life, the Commando was known as the CAR-15, or the Colt Automatic Rifle 15. It was manufactured in the 60s and the 70s. Now, the CAR saw a lot of use in Vietnam's war, and then in the early 80s. The U.S. Marine Corps asked Colt to modify the rifle into what we know today as the M4 carbine. So Treyarch really did their research here and decided to put the precursor to the M4 in their game. And like I said, it's one of my favorite M4 type weapons that we've ever received in Call of Duty. It had a bit of a fire rate nerf from previous games. It only fires at 750 as opposed to 850, but The trade-off for it was it had significant damage. It did. It was increased. Instead of dealing 20 to 30 like COD 4 and Modern Warfare 2, the Commando dealt 30 to 40, which made it a consistent 3 to 4 shot kill. It also kicked a little bit more than the previous iterations of the gun, but they kind of make sense. You consider the fact that it was an early version prototype type gun of the M4. It did carry over that 1.4 times headshot multiplier from Modern Warfare 2, meaning it could deal a maximum damage of 56 per shot. So you could actually, in theory, two-tap people at close range with this thing, although most people stuck to mid-range. It was an awesome weapon. It's one of my favorite assault rifles in Black Ops. The fire sound was good. The reload animation was super smooth. I'm also going to say this, it had the second best iron sights of any M4. You'll see who had the best a little later. So, I mean, you didn't have to use an optic attachment slot or anything like that. You didn't. You could use fast mags if you wanted to, or a suppressor. It was a beast of a weapon. I don't think it was the best M4 we've gotten, but it was definitely in the top half of the pack. Now we fast forward to Modern Warfare 3, and the main thing I remember about this version of the M4 was the super ugly iron sights. I don't know what happened. The M4 has always had basic iron sights, but with Modern Warfare 3, it was like Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer. I don't know. They wanted to make something cooler, and it just ended up looking weird. I don't know, especially when it's bouncing during a gunfight. The Modern Warfare 3 M4 was kind of like the Modern Warfare 2 version on its own, but it just, I don't know. It was okay. At point-blank range, it would deal 42 damage, which is pretty juicy, but then it would quickly drop all the way down to 20. Which makes it a 3 to 5 shot kill, which is pretty standard for the M4, all things considered. Now, the recoil on this version was low, but it wasn't the lowest in the game. It was a bit more awkward than other lasers like the ACR and the MP7. It bounced a bit more, but maybe it's just me. I don't know. It did fire at 790 rounds per minute, and it reloaded at just over 2 seconds. So all things considered, it was another well-rounded assault rifle, pretty par for the course with the M4 as we know. And one nice thing about this one was it had that headshot multiplier. So you paired that with the high fire rate, you could drop people if you had a good aim. But overall, the M4 was pretty quiet in Modern Warfare 3 due to the other popular picks like the ACR. But it wasn't a bad gun. It was pretty good. It was just kind of average. The next Call of Duty game to feature an M4 type weapon was Infinite Warfare, with the infamous NV4. Now, interestingly enough, the NV4 is actually called the M4 in the game files, which implies that at one point in development, it was actually going to be the M4 Carbine, but Infinity Ward never got the licenses, or maybe they decided to rename it. I don't know. We'll probably never know. The point is, the NV4 is essentially the M4 again. It was hands down the best gun in the game, or at least the most used gun. It fired a bit slower than other versions, only 600 rounds per minute, but it made up for that. The handling was superior. The consistent damage was what everybody wanted. It handled pretty quick compared to other assault rifles, making it easy to move around and play quickly. And that damage profile was 22 to 30. It was a 4 to 5 shot kill consistent from any range. Now, I know that's not that big a deal, right? But Infinite Warfare actually had one of the longer time to kills in Call of Duty after the initial updates, and when your gun has virtually no recoil, hitting those shots isn't hard. Now, the main reason everybody used the NV4 was because of the non-existent recoil. It was the definition of a laser beam, and it was insanely good in both core and hardcore modes. I said before, the Commando has the second best iron sights of any M4, and that's because the NV4 is number one. The iron sights on this are super clean, and that was one of the reasons why people gravitated to it. You didn't need an optic. You could use that class slot on something else like another perk or attachment, although a lot of people still did use an ELO sight on it. That's your preference. I mean, it was a monster. It was one of the most spammed weapons in COD history, and I don't think it was overpowered because when you look at the stats, it really wasn't that crazy. But I think everything else that was underpowered in comparison wasn't crazy on its own. But there was no true counter to it, and it was easily the easiest gun to use in the game. And that brings us all the way to the final M4 in Call of Duty so far. Modern Warfare 2019, which I think everyone will agree is the best version of the gun that we've gotten. Even after all the nerfs, tweaks, everything that Infinity Ward has made to the gun, it's still hands down the best assault rifle in the game in pretty much every mode. It was one of the first assault rifles you got your hands on in Modern Warfare 2019, and ever since the beta, it's been the most used gun in the game. The M4 in Modern Warfare. It was ridiculous at launch, and it's still easily one of the best around. It fires at 833 rounds per minute. Currently hits between 18 and 28 damage, which makes it a 4 to 6 shot kill, which doesn't sound great, but it really gets the most mileage out of its range and its headshot multipliers. The range is super forgiving. So most engagements will be 4 to 5 shots and you're good. And the headshot multiplier, well, it's dumb. 1.6 times, which dramatically speeds up your time to kill. With that fast of a fire rate and that much damage potential and the fact that the recoil, it's easy to control, well, you can see why the M4 is the most popular gun in this game. To me, the Modern Warfare M4 is ridiculous, and I think it's the best version of the gun we've ever gotten. So you let me know, do you agree or do you disagree? You let me know what Evolution episode you would like to see next. Drop a like, and I'll see you guys soon.